there's a lot of things I do want to pick your brain about. I mean, one of them being the biggest part, which has been the offensive line, but we'll just kind of stick with the offense. Dan Campbell's play calling. What have you kind of made of this whole Dan Campbell experience of the play calling? And what have you seen, I guess? What did you think? Because I haven't gotten a chance to talk to you about it, me personally, but John Morton's play calling, the adjustment to now Dan Campbell's play calling and the differences of not having Ben Johnson. What have you made of all of it?
So it just seemed through the 8 games or whatever it was with Morton that there was a desire to really push the ball down the field, even at the expense of the comfortability of your quarterback. Make them hold the ball a little longer, and these guys will end up getting open. But that's not the strength of this quarterback, and it's not the strength of what this offensive line does. Being, two very young guards and a center who's well past his prime, obviously a rock solid right tackle, but a kind of banged up left tackle that's sort of, you're playing with fire there. And it seemed to me that he just wouldn't get out of his way when it came to the things that he wanted to do and the kind of plays he wanted to run. And towards the end of his calling plays, it got to the point during the Minnesota game, specific to the Minnesota game, there were times when the body language of the Detroit Lions on offense looked almost like, yeah, he just called a play and we know it's not going to work. I don't know if that was a vibe they gave you guys, but
yeah,
it just wasn't working. So when Dan Campbell takes over and immediately they're going crossing routes and the ball's coming out quick and all these things is happening, it's like, yeah, they're back. They'll be fine. And then Philly happens. And, in hindsight, looking at the Philly stuff, the plays were there to be made. They really were. I don't think the play calling was the issue. Some of the choices, going for it as much as you did on 4th down and the fake punt and all that stuff, those are choices. But the actual play calling, JMO had what I would consider to be probably a drop. Amon-Ra St. Brown had, I don't know. I mean, they targeted him 12 times and he had 2 catches. That's probably never going to happen again, So you had lots of dysfunction and stuff like that inside their offense, but it doesn't mean that the play calls were bad. It's just the execution of those plays, it just didn't work for a variety of reasons. To me, either Goff was very hurried and his process was way too sped up, so the ball was coming out too soon. Which I think if I'm trying to remember exactly what times they were, but they were back-to-back plays, deep digs, one on 3rd down, one on 4th down. The first one on 3rd down went to Amon-Ra and hit him kind of in the hands, but it was so hot. And I just don't think he anticipated the ball being there because he hadn't really come out of his route yet. And the next play hit JMO in the shin, same thing. It's never where you would expect a Goff to put the ball. So I think he was speeding up his process and then also a little bit paralyzed with the pressure. But the play calls themselves, if you break down the plays themselves, there was success to be had within those plays. So I don't think I'm really thinking that the play calling was an issue. It was more of an execution issue and really a historically bad performance for Jared Goff against Philly. And I it's kind of the nuts and bolts of the whole thing.
Yeah, Scott, I do want to ask you too, just because we've had the conversation this week, actually the last few weeks, and then obviously there's been all these injuries with the offensive line. What's your confidence level like from what you've seen so far with some of these guys, especially like a Tate Ratledge, a rookie in there that's trying to still figure this thing out, but he's expected to start right next to Penei Sewell, an older Graham Glasgow, and then you got, kind of Yodi and just someone filling in at the left guard there, whoever they feel like is going to be best each week. Do you think that they can figure this thing out with the offensive line? Because I think we all know, like, Jared Goff, to be able to be good, has to be protected. And that seems to be kind of maybe one of the issues at the moment is he's not getting the protection, so he's able to kind of go out there and perform to what Jared Goff does, because he's not mobile and he can't do what other guys do.
Yeah, for sure. He's limited so much from an athletic standpoint. But no, I don't know that they're going to get it figured out. It's not just one position that's a problem. This Graham Glasgow is older, and I do not think he's not playing well enough to carry the offensive line from in the middle, calling their protections, and there's a lot of flaws in his game as an older player, and I just think it's it's just he's at the end, right? And so then you put a overly aggressive guard next to him on his right side and Tate Ratledge, and like on the first two plays of the game against Philly, one was an outside zone run where Ratledge did not execute his assignment and didn't block the player who showed up in his where he would have been on his tracks. He just didn't block him, and that guy made a tackle. He tracked down the run from behind and kind of blew up what was going to be a pretty good play. And then on the very next play, he just got kind of bulldozed, I think, by Jalen Carter. And there was a pressure there because he just got run over. You can take the getting run over because that's going to happen in the NFL. It's a thing. It happens. But you can't take something like the outside zone run where it just doesn't appear that he knows necessarily who he should have blocked on that play. That's a killer. The other one is like, all right, well, what are you going to do? I mean, the dude just ran over you. So I guess big picture is I don't know that it gets fixed. They do have pieces returning. Mahogany will be back, I hope, late in the season. Miles Frazier is yet to really make his presence felt there. I don't know. And then I guess the second part of where I would be thinking about answering the question is, what is the solution, or what are we thinking? Is somebody else going to step in and play center and push Glasgow to be like a backup interior O-lineman, which is probably what he should be? Who is that? Is that maybe Miles Frazier? I don't really know. I don't know. Is Miles Frazier a future right tackle, kicking Penny Sewell over to left tackle? I don't know. But clearly they have needs. I mean, their two biggest needs right now, probably in this order, are center and left tackle. And, I don't know how with their current crop they're going to fix this. They're just going to have to make it work. They can do it. It's just you're going to have moments where Goff looks the way he did last Sunday night, and it's just it was just not good enough.
I've interrupted the show to tell you about our friends over at Sleeper, the fastest growing fantasy platform in the entire world. And I'll tell you this as well. They have Sleeper picks, and if your state allows it, you should be using it. It's very simple. You pick more or less than the predicted stats on different players. And for Lions Giants, I have my picks. I have more on Amon-Ra St. Brown's receiving yards, more on Dave Montgomery's touchdowns over 0.5. He's going to score this week over as well or more on Dave Montgomery's rushing yards. And I also like the more on Jackson Dart's rushing yards if he plays. I think he's going to be running around. This Lions defense is going to be flying around, and they're going to have a big day. Sleeper picks. Use the code CT Sports. Along with it, have fun. Shout out to our friends at Sleeper for always sponsoring the program. Now let's get back to it. Yeah, Scott, a lot of the conversation we have and people in our chat have is Brad Holmes not addressing center earlier, which is something that, the Eagles, for example, they did a really good job of. Cam Jurgens was there kind of behind Jason Kelce, knowing they assumed that Jason Kelce was going to retire soon. And then Cam Jurgens steps in, and he's been very good. Do you think there's a lot of truth to that Brad kind of waited? And he invested some capital in offensive linemen, but I believe besides Panay, the highest pick before Tate was Giovanni Manu, and he's a project. Yeah. It didn't seem like he prioritized it a ton. He took like Chris Mahogany in the 6th, which he hasn't been that good this year, or Miles Frazier and Tate Ratledge this year. But do you think there's truth to that? Brad kind of fumbling that, not prioritizing it, knowing what kind of quarterback he has?
Not necessarily, because I think any of those guys can play center. Cam Jurgens was a guard coming into the NFL. He wasn't necessarily. I think he was a guard, but it wasn't like a guarantee that he was going to step in and be able to play center. They anticipated a significant drop off after Kelce retired. I mean, the point is taken. Should they have drafted a pure guard in this draft? Maybe. I mean, that's one way you could go, but then you're still talking about having a rookie right guard, a rookie center, right? And a first-year left guard, and I think that's worse in the big picture than have them playing Graham Glasgow as a center. or it has worse potentials for outcomes. So I don't know. I mean, it's, I would think that the center position is something they're heavily targeting in the 2026 draft, and I would expect them to make a pick on a player they fully expect to play center. Whether that player played center in college at all, I don't know.
Hey, Scott, I want to ask, I think, you actually talked about the player when you were on a couple of weeks ago when it was just you and I, or a couple months now, but Tyleik Williams, what are your thoughts so far this season? Because Jeff and I actually spoke about him I think it was last Thursday or Friday, because Dan came out in the media and was like, someone asked him like, hey, he only got 6 snaps a couple weeks ago. Like, what's going on? And he just said he's just kind of inconsistent right now. Have you seen anything in his game, one, that's positive to you, and two, something else that he needs to work on to where we can actually see that first round level of a draft pick that we, the Lions drafted in Tyleik?
I thought he was fine for a rookie in the first couple of games in the first, third of the season. It seems like the snap counts and a bunch of other things have happened since Aleem McNeill has returned, and it's changed the calculus for how they want to line up and the kind of bodies they want in certain situations. And there might be scenarios where he's behind Aleem McNeill, and there's only room for 1 3-tech on the field, and Reeder's playing a lot, and then Lopez comes in and he seems to be playing a lot, and he's just behind those guys. As far as his game go, I think he's, is he going to be a super effective pass rusher? I don't know, but I've seen enough. I saw enough of him at Ohio State, and so far here to know that I think he will emerge down the road into a pretty reliable, run stuffer first kind of player with some juice to get to other places. It's just, I think he's behind numbers right now, and he's getting limited reps to show what he can do. I don't think it's going to stay that way. I got a feeling Aleem McNeill may be sitting on the edge here coming pretty soon, which is crazy for him to be an edge player. But think about what that looks like with McNeill as an edge, Hutch as an edge, Reeder, and Tyleik Williams inside. It's intriguing, but that's kind of what they did with McNeill the last game, is they played him a little bit as an edge right away in that matchup. It's a good question because he certainly hasn't done he hasn't done as much explosive stuff or dynamic stuff that you would think out of a first rounder, but he also plays a very, very unsexy position. So,
Now, I'll ask you, Scott, for my last question. They've been, at least Dan's been talking about getting guys like Tesla more involved. What have you, I guess we'll just talk from like a preseason standpoint to kind of the player you covered in college to what he kind of is in the pros. I haven't seen a lot of them, but is that a player that you believe they need to get more involved, especially if they are running more 11 personnel instead of 12 personnel with the loss of Sam Laporta? Do you think that's a guy that can help, especially come the red zone, for example?
I think it would help specifically in the red zone where things are condensed. The Lions do not have a 50-50 ball guy, right? And he is.
Right.
So I don't think I'd necessarily want to change the offense. I wouldn't want to. I guess I'd just put it this way. I don't want Jared Goff holding the ball too long for any reason. I think that's failure. We know this. So if they're going to try to design these long developing plays for Tesla, I think that's not a great idea. But like you mentioned, if we're talking red zone where it's condensed and the ball can come out quickly, yeah, please use that. Please use that. Like fades in the corner where the ball's going to be his, go up and get it. Yeah, for sure.
What do you think, Scott, going forward rest of the season? What's your confidence level to win a Super Bowl? And 2, what do you think over these next kind of 3 games? I think it's a 3-game home stretch. Do you see them being able to make, take this stretch and go 3-0?
Yeah, I mean, I do. I think the Giants possess some unique challenges. They have a good defensive line. They have a good pass rush, but I think you can run on them. So that should kind of soften that. I don't think Jackson Dart's going to play, but don't quote me on that. I don't know for sure. So that changes everything too. I think you'll get some turnovers from Winston, and so that one feels like a game that they really should win. And then you get Green Bay at home. That's a huge game. That is, you got to win that game to take their tiebreaker away from them, but also to push them down, the division just a little bit. It's Dallas after that, right?
Yes. Yeah, well, it's Giants, Packers, Dallas.
Okay. And I just, I think their offense is too dynamic for Dallas to really be able to stand up to it. So, yeah, I mean, I kind of feel like they should go 3-0 in this 3-game stretch.
Love it. Scott, we appreciate you. You guys can follow Scott at Bischoff_Scott. We appreciate your time, Scott. Detroit Lions
Anytime, guys.
Analyst, DetroitLionsPodcast.com. We'll talk to you soon, my friend.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Thanks, Scott.
Hey, what's going on there? It's Jeff Iafrate. Appreciate you for finishing the video. You can check out one of the videos here suggested or show support by commenting, liking, and subscribing. And buy your merchandise, FisherCTSports.com.